Hey, how's it going? Making videos like this is no problem for me, so I'll just post this on YouTube. It'll be completely de-identified, so I think this works out. I did this during COVID last year, and a lot of people liked it, and I ended up making a ton of videos. So this is how we will negotiate. We can also go between email. So this is kind of like a starter video to get you digging into the assignment. And then as you work on it, if you're lacking confidence in something or something is messing with your head, send me an email and that'll work out great. This is very appropriate. I'm in my garage. So sorry, it's kind of dark and gloomy in here. I just came out because the dogs were whining and my kids have friends over because it's fall break for them and it's just chaos. So I'm out in my semi-heated garage. Okay, so we're looking for scholarly articles and they have to be peer reviewed. And we're looking at a very specific population that self identifies, and um, major depression is the diagnosis. So there's a lot of stuff going on. How do we find something like that? And what does peer reviewed mean? Um, Ever since the temperatures changed, my eyes have been watering like crazy. In the academic library, every academic library, you can search out, especially for psychology, you can search out big words that are diagnoses in the DSM: major depression and adolescent. So that's like teen. Teen is adolescent. Sometimes they use teen, but adolescent I think is more common in the scholarly literature. But you can go over here to the side and see books, or we can, is there a book? Here's books right here. So books typically are produced for clinicians or practitioners, and they're going to have a list of interventions. So it might be counseling, might be like talk therapy, cognitive behavioral. It could be a medicine. It could be one thing or the other. Um, oh yeah, there's psychopharmacology. So you can get some of these ideas. You could do this out on the open web as well, because we're not looking for scholarly articles at this point. We're just kind of looking, what are some of the interventions? And that might help you look for the scholarly articles. So you could cruise around in some of these. No, 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 I'm looking for something that talks about, here we go. So it doesn't necessarily have to be adolescent. So treatment of depression. This one's a little old. So maybe if we backed out, let's do major depression and treatment or intervention. They stuck the microphone in my keyboard for this computer, so I apologize. It's not great. So what it's doing here is it's looking for major depression. I put it in quote marks so it looks for major and depression stuck together like Legos. And I don't know if it's treatment or depression, or treatment or intervention. So let's look in books. I bet there's guidebooks that will say, here's all the interventions. Oh, once you're in the catalog bit, I'll be darned. The social origins of major depression. It is a relatively recent thing that depression is recognized, and it's okay for people to talk about it. When I was growing up, people tended to suppress it because they might be fired from their job or something like that. Under resource type, though, you can go to books. And if there's like a major book on this, it should bubble up to the top. Oh, yeah. Oh, 1984. That's the era kind of that I was talking about. Here's one intervention: ignore it and pretend that it's not there. I'm joking. Um, oh, this one looks better. Treatment plans and interventions for depression and anxiety disorders. You could look at, there's a lot of stuff like WebMD and the Mayo Clinic and things like that. But you could look at things like this and get kind of an idea of what's going on. Oh, here's cognitive behavioral therapy. So books are great for looking for interventions. Scholarly articles, it's better to be really focused when you go in to look for those. Otherwise, you might have to comb through a bunch of them, but I'll show you some techniques for getting through that. So if you go to databases, a really popular one for this assignment and for social workers is a psychology database. So if you go by subject, you can go by all these different disciplinary fields, and we can just go to psychology. And I'm not the psychology librarian, but Marie Paiva is, and she chose this one, PsycInfo from the APA, which it's the darling of the social work faculty. Can't go wrong. Uh-oh, are you going to ask me? I swear I've logged in 5 times today. So if we go into a scholarly database like PsycInfo, this is a single discipline. Since you're looking at, oh no, not this again, the Zotero proxy. Hopefully that won't mess up my search results. Since we're going into the discipline of psychology, we can also go into a discipline of maybe like medicine, because major depression manifests itself in physical ways as well, and doctors and hospital staff and physicians treat this. So it might show up in there. So you could look in a discipline of like nursing or medicine. It also, when we have this population of adolescents or teens, it's going to show up in the education literature too. So if you're a teacher or a school administrator, you want to be able to know what the signs are and what some of the things you can do to help parents or your school community with things like this. So you could look in education as a discipline too. You don't have to just look in psychology. So what I show you here, you can repeat in any of those disciplines, and you can find the best database for that just by going in that subject thing that we did. Just go back like 2 minutes in the YouTube video. So when you're doing keyword searching, essentially you're saying, look through all the titles, keywords that the authors have listed in a list for their articles, and the abstract. It doesn't search through full text. That would be chaos, because most of these articles are like 30 to 70 pages. And it's saying return those words. So you can just type in, and sometimes it'll suggest it, adolescent. I'm just going to do adolescence. And so what I'll say is, out of the millions of articles in this database, I would like you to return all of those that have that metadata, that have the word adolescence in there somewhere. Out of that big pile, if I put an AND, then I can start to put in my disorder. Here is one thing that I would suggest. So again, I'm sticking major depression together with the quote marks. Something that I would suggest is depression often is treated, and sometimes it's not always referred to as major depression. So I would say be free with your keywords and go back and forth between major depression and depression. We'll look that up. And we have our intervention or treatment. Now here's that niche that you were looking for. You're looking for somebody who self-identifies as gay, and their gender, they self-identify as male. When you add so many specific keywords, let me show you what happens. Sometimes they use the term homosexual or LGBTQ. I'm not sure if they're going to do LGBTQ plus. Oh, let's do a star. What a star does is it says, okay, find anything that has LGBT in the prefix and then any other suffix that comes in. Bring those in as well. So we don't know how that's going to be described in the literature, that self-identification. So do you see what I'm doing here? I'm putting a concept in between each one of these ands. So it starts out with, let's start over. So it starts with adolescence, brings all the ones with adolescence in it. Then it's out of that pool of articles, it's narrowing it down to depression. And then the next concept, it's narrowing it down to an intervention or a treatment. And then the next concept, and on forward. So the more of these concepts you put in, the less results you'll get, which is not bad, but we might have to like back out and look at a concept at a time. So adolescent intervention and depression, and then go into gender or sexual identity or something like that. But let's throw in all the details. Let's see. Male. I think that should cover it. Okay. I don't know what's going to be in here. It seems like it's so many keywords. We're asking it to just bring back like 7 articles. Oh, there's 152. I'll shut my mouth. Look at that. Ooh, bolstering resilience through a camp intervention for LGBTQ youth. Here's an interesting thing. This one does not talk about gender, but you can see right here, it says male or female. Don't be constrained to just male. Look for those and see if there's like one article that does talk about that. But I think the more important thing is the age and the identity. And so you can pick and choose the things that contribute, and think of it as a storyline where you're saying, with each of the 10 articles, each one is going to make a different point where you're going to help somebody understand a whole topic. So the first article might be about major depression in adolescence. Another one might be about interventions. Another one might be about what happens when you self-identify as LGBTQ. And then at the end, you will have covered all of those keywords. So let me show you an example of that. So instead of having all of this, although I think that might be important, let's get rid of male. What happens? So we have 152. What happens if we omit a gender specificity? Like 70% more? What happens if we take out, another identity? So if you couldn't find enough and they were starting to repeat themselves, you might go into what is adolescent depression like? So it was 28,000, that's too much. But you could go back. I don't know if the capitalization matters. LGBT star, so it catches all of those. So what if we talk about what does it mean for somebody to self-identify as this in adolescence? And we're talking about depression. Oh, look at that. Understanding factors. So another word for factors is risk factors. How can you tell if somebody is at risk for suicide thinking or ideation, as they sometimes call it? So your job, and this is something that I'll help you with, is go through the literature and find the ones that are interesting, but don't necessarily have to say everything, but maybe talk a little bit about each element that you're looking at, and then try and put it into a storyline. Instead of trying to find one article that says everything, because you have 10 to tell this story. And that's how a literature review is going to work. So mix and match your keywords. Another thing you can do is there's sorting options on the side, one of which is peer-reviewed. Peer-reviewed means, if in a wildly oversimplistic way, peer-reviewed means that if I publish an article to a journal and the editor says, yep, you're good, we're going to publish it, then it's my voice and it's the voice of the editor or even like the journal. But if I publish to a peer-reviewed journal, the editorial staff is a bunch of people who are doing the same discipline as me. And if they pass me, if a peer-reviewed journal passes the article that I've proposed for publication, then it means that we're speaking on behalf of that entire discipline. So peer-reviewed, there's a lot more gravity to it, and it's a lot more rigorous. And if you just click on this, you'll get the peer-reviewed articles. Beware, there's like letters to the editor and other short things. If it's something that's shorter than 20 pages, beware. It might not be a scholarly article. Also, 1960 was a long time ago, so we should use the date slider and push it up to the more recent years. That'll help narrow down some of these as well. That is PsycInfo. Oh, by the way, some of these you'll see PDF full text like that. No problem, you got the full text right there. Some of these have this View It button. What does that mean? It means the full text is not in that database. So if you click on the View It button, and that'll show up in all the databases, it will send you to library catalog and it'll look for that journal. And underneath the yellow bar, it'll tell you your list of journals that you can select from. Here's the yellow bar. And if I go to this, fingers crossed, it'll dump me right into that article that I was looking for. If you can't find an article, oh yeah, look, it dumped me right in. It's like a miracle. For like 10 years ago, this didn't happen. It was much more painful. If you find something and you can't get full text for it, or if you can't get the article or anything like that, email me the citation and I'll track it down for you. That's my job. If you want to skip me altogether, there is a service at the Marriott Library called Interlibrary Loan that will do this as well. But in psychology, there's a lot of good stuff that you can find. So to reiterate, the databases you should consider going through for trying these keywords out is go into education, and there's a database called Education Full Text. That one's good. The psychology, PsycInfo by APA is really good. And then you could go into nursing, where they're doing a lot of interactions with populations who are suffering a great deal of stress. Maybe they're in the hospital for kidney failure or who knows what. But you can also go into medicine, and they'll talk a lot about the same things that nursing does. Nursing is really good because they have a lot more time to interact with people than sometimes like a cancer physician does. And there's psychology again too. So this is just a starting point. Let me know how it goes, and I'm happy to help you further. But you should be able to track down more than enough. Your job will be to narrow it down to that 10 that turns into a storyline narrative that takes us from not understanding your topic to having a complete understanding for it. Okay. Have a good one, and have a nice take fall break time if you can. That's when I am in my garage, so